Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined by Missional Leadership Coaching, which is developing leaders around the world to embrace their God-given potential. And we are so excited to have Dr. Jeffrey D. Skinner joining us here today. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you. And you're hailing today live from, is it Atlanta, Georgia?
That's right. Yeah, a suburb of Atlanta. But yeah, we're about 30 miles from downtown Atlanta. It's a beautiful day here, about 76 degrees or so. So just wonderful time here.
Beautiful. Well, we need to get to know you, obviously, but first and foremost, tell us the website and how we can contact you.
Yeah, missionalleadershipcoaching.com is the website there. And you can reach out to me through the website. There's a phone number on there where you can reach me as well. But what we do is we develop leaders, as you said in the intro there, we develop leaders around the world to meet their God-given potential, right? We believe that everybody holds value. I don't care where you are. Everybody has value. And it doesn't matter, what you've done in your past. It doesn't matter where you've come from. It doesn't matter if you grew up in a dysfunctional home or one of the healthiest homes on the planet. Everybody has great potential and everybody has value. And so what we try to do is come alongside people and help them not only realize that value, but add value to them, because that's really what leadership is about.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I know for today, we going to talk about the coaching and the training that you do to help other leaders out there. We also have to talk about your book, your coaching, and get to know you on a personal level.
Yeah,
Do you
appreciate
want to
that.
share a little bit about yourself? I know you had some challenges to overcome as a child, like most of us. Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, sure. I try not to focus too much on the challenges, but they do form a role in shaping us and
Hmm.
shaping who we are. But my father grew up in an alcoholic home, and so he didn't have a great role model. So he was, a little bit violent sometimes, somewhat abusive. My mom,
Yeah.
cosmetologist, didn't have a high school diploma. She grew up in a very religiously oppressive home,
Hmm.
legalism, and to the point not just in don't smoke, don't chew, and don't go with
Yeah.
the guys who do, but to the point that you can't watch TV, you can't put on makeup, you can't go to ball games, don't ride your bicycle, because it was almost reminder. Well, it's just very oppressive religious culture. So they didn't, and her father had a third grade education. Her mom, he was one of 20 children whose dad, worked him on the farm. So we say these things not
Yeah.
be victims, but to understand where they come from, right? Because we have to see things from their perspective. And so growing up in that home, there just wasn't a lot of options given to us. We just attended public school and we just kind of was taught to accept whatever lot in life it dealt us. But as I graduated high school, well, I had a church, one that was very formative in pouring into me. Later in life, my father did accept Jesus as his savior. He
Hmm.
became a Christian. He became a Nazarene pastor, and my mom, she got back in church as well. But I kind of led that charge. I had a
Yeah.
sneaky that would come and pick me up, and take me to church, and the church just loved on me and discipled
Hmm.
me. And so that shaped me. And so I grew up and I began to recognize, you know what? I have God given potential. I have value, even though my parents may not have known enough in the short term to recognize and to tell me that and tell my sister that. Over time, they learned that, and the church poured that into me. They said, look, just because someone else doesn't recognize that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that God doesn't recognize that. And so went to college, and of course in Nashville, Tennessee, versus a small town in Alabama. So you begin to, as your options grow, as your education grows, your options grow there. And when I was the first one in my family to achieve doctorate. And my mom eventually, though, she ended up going back to school and getting a high school diploma, and went to college and even got a master's degree, opened her own counseling business. So even she, as she got back into church, recognized that she had potential. and that church doesn't have to be oppressive, that Jesus
Yeah.
is God and the Holy Spirit is not there to set a bunch of rules on us to follow, but simply to offer a relationship with us so that we can thrive in life.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And where did you want to start for today? What area of focus for the work you're doing?
Yeah, well, I've got a brand new book out on
Yeah.
Reachable, and that is called Reachable: 7 Keys to Loving, Mentoring, and Leading the Church of the Next Generations. And the church has come a long way. I mean, the church is not about an institution, but the church is about people, right? Um, Jesus didn't die on a cross, we say, to
Yeah.
form a church. The church existed long before Pentecost, which is what we'll celebrate here in a few days. And in fact, it may be, I think it's this Sunday, it's Pentecost Sunday. So yeah, he didn't die for that. He died for people's sin in order they may have
Mm-hmm.
salvation, so they may have thrive. And so the book is about, okay, I did research for 3 years, and I became curious. What is it that makes a difference in
Yeah.
someone having a meaningful Christian identity in adulthood, right?
Yeah.
So we have lots of people that grow up in the church, but then end up leaving the faith or deconstructing the faith, whatever terminology you want to use there, because of various reasons. And so I wasn't curious about that. I mean, there's been books written about that, hypocrisy being a big one out there. And so, I wanted to know, okay, not why they leave the church, but what makes the difference as an adult where they have a meaningful Christian identity. And when I say meaningful, it makes a difference in how they live.
Yeah.
So, do I love my neighbor as myself? Do I see all people as valuable and want to add value to their life? Those are core questions in Christianity. It's not just about, are we going to go to heaven when we die? Jesus talked very little
Yeah.
about when we die. Jesus talked about adding value today, and he came to add
Mm-hmm.
value today. So we thrive, to free the oppressed, right? And to give sight to the blind, and to heal the sick, all those things. And so my book looked at, when I did that, I looked at 3 areas of what experiences do people have.
Yeah.
If somebody had a negative experience in life, or even a negative experience with the church, did that make a difference? Is that whether they had a Christian identity in adulthood? So let's say hypocrisy, that
Okay.
perhaps they were, grew up in a church and abused in some way,
Yeah.
physically or emotionally or something, by a pastor or religious leader.
Or one.
Did
Yeah.
that contribute significantly to them deconstructing identity, where they did not have an identity as a Christian in the past, that they left the church for that? And the answer that I found was no, it did not. It had an effect, but was it a significant effect? And in research, it has to be 99% or higher in order for it to be an actual effect, to be significant, to be considered significant there. And even at 99%, if it's just 99.1, that's a low significance. If it's 99.5, that's a moderate significance. In order to be highly significant, 99.7. So when you do all your research, it has to be
Yeah.
0.05 or higher to be moderately significant, 0.07 or higher to be statistically highly significant there. So bad experiences or positive experiences really didn't make a difference there. And I said, okay, method. So if someone had, just a lot of
Yeah.
religious teaching and things like that, did that really make a difference in their life? It did
Mm-hmm.
not.
Oh,
We can Google anything today.
true.
There's lots of
Very true.
knowledge going on out there.
Yeah.
But do we take action on that knowledge, right? I mean, we have pervasive amount of knowledge, but a very little amount of wisdom in today's culture. And so that really didn't make a difference there. But the one area that did was relationships.
Interesting.
And that's not an accident. I mean, Jesus talked about having a relationship with him through the Holy Spirit, a relationship with God. God talks about God loving
Yeah.
humanity, that he sent his only son to die on a cross, that they may, have life and life abundantly, right? They
Yeah.
would perish. And so it shouldn't be surprising to us, but it is. Now, it's not to say, again, that methods aren't important, but
True.
it's to say that when you combine a method with a relationship. So let's say that we take the model of Jesus of being a rabbi, of you know,
Mm-hmm.
a teacher and shaping people. And there's books out there that tells you that studies all that. But if you take that way of Jesus there and you begin to live that as a mentor to someone else, well, that in relationship absolutely makes a difference in their life because it has to be modeled, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be surprising to us. I mean, if I'm going to be a carpenter, they don't just put me in a classroom and give me all these methods for being a carpenter. They're going to put me in the field and teach me to, use a hammer and a nail. They're going to use me
Yeah.
as a saw. Well, if we want to shape a Christian identity in someone, we need to give them models. And what better model than ourselves? Recognizing that we are human. Look, we're going to fail over and over again. The key, though, that you find with this
Yeah.
next generation, especially though, is not that you tell them that you set yourself up as the next Jesus. It's
Mm-hmm.
simply that you go in and you say, "Look, I am human, just like you are. I am frail. I have
Yeah.
good days and I have bad days.
Darn right. Yeah.
And when I have the bad days, look, I'll apologize. I messed up. I was not a high level leader today. Please accept my forgiveness. Yeah. And I found my research found that as long as you're authentic and not trying to pretend to be someone that you're not, they absolutely will glob onto that like flies on garbage. I mean, it's just amazing how because they are so they're so hungry for those connections. That one of the things that research has borne out here in the last few years is that Gen Z is the most anxious generation. I mean, if you think about everything they've gone through, 9/11, they were born around that time. The COVID, many of their senior year was just destroyed for that. Our senior or juniors were destroyed for that, had to go homeschool or online school for a year or so. I mean, all that affects people, right? And so this generation is lonely for connection and hungry for connection and relationships, but they're traumatized. And so they have a lot of anxiety. And so anxiety is highly medicated. It can, but that's not the answer. The answer is to have someone that can walk with you and help you to navigate that tough terrain in life. And when you've got someone walking with you, it makes so much more difference than if you're just trying to do it alone, right?
Yeah,
And
for
so my
sure.
book, you can go to Amazon. It's on pre-order right now. It'll be available May 28th. You can get it directly from me. I've got a few copies. I got, I think, 25 copies here. I had 75 that are already pre-ordered, sold, or reserved for sale. I've got 25 copies. You go to reachable.book.com, purchase directly from me, and I can send it directly now. I've got those copies in stock. Otherwise, go to Amazon, pre-order, or the audiobook is available now. So you can go to audible.com or Spotify has audiobooks. There's lots of places that have audiobooks out there. You can download the audiobook now as well. But that's what the book is about. It's just, 7 keys, and relationship is a part of it, but it's not all of it. You've got to have a relationship with someone, but it's not just, being someone's friend. It's not just being a parent to someone or a mentor with someone. It's about walking with them in that journey. And
Yeah.
so anyway, that's pretty much what the book is about. I mean, they're obviously, there's 180 pages, so you're not gonna get 180 pages just in the podcast as I talk about it. But I've had a lot of leaders, high capacity
Yeah.
leaders in the church that's reviewed it. There's other books out there that are similar. And it's not to say that I have all the answers, but these are some of the answers there.
Well, thank you for that. Remind us of how we can contact you, please.
Yeah, you can go to missionalleadershipcoaching.com. My website is there. My email is there. You can go to, there's a form on the Reachable Book website as well where you can contact me. We're doing book tours. So if you'd like to bring the Reachable message where I come in and kind of do a presentation on the principles of that. We'll go into your city, your church. I've got 3 scheduled right now, one out in the Oregon area, one down in the Alabama area, and another one down in the Texas area. And so we're looking to book a couple of more of those. And so there's a form on the website where you can reach out to me to get that scheduled or find out what's there. And then my phone number is on there as well. So there's a missional leadership coaching website. It rings directly to my phone and to my cell phone here. And so you'll get a brief pause when you call in, and it rings me, and I answer the phone. You get me personally. I don't have a voicemail or anything like that. You'll talk to me. I believe in the personal touch. I don't believe in an organization of people that, you know, prevent you from reaching me. I mean, if I'm going to write a book on being reachable, I have to be reachable, right?
Of course. Thank you so much. Well, we still have 8 minutes together, and there's
Yeah.
so much more to talk about you, your book, your offerings, your work, your
Yeah.
coaching, your services. Oh my goodness, your podcast. What else would you like to share here?
Yeah.
My
So,
goodness.
so my missional leadership coaching, what that is about. Yes, it's developing leaders around the world, but it's taking those leadership principles and applying them
Okay.
in planting churches or nonprofit ministries. So every year, more churches close than open. The average size of a church today is, despite your huge monolithic mega churches that run 12, 13, 20,000 or so, the average size of a church today is less than 70 people. And more churches close than open every year. And so there's a net loss of the influence of the church on culture. And that's not
Yeah.
to say that the church has to be present, or a church has to be present within a community to make a positive difference, because ultimately, as I said earlier, we are the church. The people are the church, and our activity within the community does that. So that's one of the things that I do, as I teach people and coach people how to go into a new city and start a brand new church. And it's not like you just walk in there, and
Yeah.
used to, long time ago, they'd want to start a church. You did it this way. You'd go into a community and you'd pitch a big old tent, and then you'd set up a sawdust floor, and you put some hard benches in there, and you put a bunch of signs out in the community, word of mouth, and you say, hey, we're going to have a revival here. And then for a week or 2 weeks, or however long it lasted, all the people would come in, and they would sit down, and they would be preached to, or in whatever fashion that they want to be preached to, whatever suited their fancy, so to speak. Well, today people are busy. You can pitch a tent in a city. You can pitch a tent in Atlanta, Georgia. You can pitch a tent in New York City. Advertise and spend $1 million advertising that there's going to be a revival. Chances are there's not going to be a whole lot of people that show up.
Wow.
And so what I teach them to do is simply go in, and again, we tie it back to the book, start building relationships. Find out what needs exist within that community. Even if it is a wealthy community, needs exist. If it's an impoverished community, obviously needs exist. If it's just, everybody has needs. The human condition is a needy condition. And so what I train people to do, we have 4 phases. That's the God to you phase. The God to you phase 1, that just basically says who, what, when, where, how, and why. So the first question is, why do I want to plant a church?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times leaders will say, well, I want to plant a church in Winder, Georgia, because that's this little out of the way community outside of in Atlanta, near Atlanta, but it's a very rural community, and there's just not a lot of churches there. So I want to plant a church. Or maybe there's not a church in your particular tribe or denomination, so I want to plant a church there. Well, the reality is that that's not a good reason. I mean, there may not be a Walmart there, but Walmart's not going to go in there and open a Walmart for 1,000 people.
Yeah.
It's just not worth their time, and it's not profitable for them. So just because a church doesn't exist in a particular area doesn't mean that that's where you need to plant a church. So the reason why is that you have prayed
Yeah.
through and God, and you sense through many others. It's not just a single voice of God. God speaks through himself, but also through others. You'll begin to get confirmation
Yeah.
from others. I'm calling you in this community to plant a church. That's why you do it. And then who's God calling you to reach? Not just the people in that community, but is there a particular group in there that has a greater need than someone else, right? And so and most of the time it has to do with who you are as well. What is your personality? Yes, you're a Christian. Yes, you were called by God to do this, but look, if you're more of a rural type person and that's all you've been exposed to, God's probably not going to call you to downtown Atlanta to plant a church because you don't really identify. You don't really have that. The people that are in New York City. If you've grown up in New York City, there's a culture there, right? I mean, that has shaped you and who you are. I've heard about that. Same thing with the San Francisco. These large metropolitan areas shape who you are. So God's going to call you to work within your area of strength there. And then so that's and where is it, who, why, what is God calling you to do? What needs exist in that community? All that is phase one there. And we generally set a timeline, usually about 12 months, depending upon where you are. In the USA, 12 months is about the max that you can go. If you're, somewhere else, I mean, I coach leaders around the world. I've got leaders in Indonesia. I've got leaders in India. I have people in Nigeria, in Nicaragua. I mean, all over the world where people are planting churches as a result of being coached by myself or my team. And so, when they go in, they have to look at their context. And so their context might be in Indonesia, there's such a huge need for orphanages there. And that's really where
Yeah.
the need starts. You're teaching children. They don't have a public education system in India. And so, or if they do, it's not for the lower class. There's a caste system there. It's for the wealthy. And so if you're doing ministry in India, most of the time you're doing it to the children. And in ministering to the children, you get the adults in. But there's orphanages are all over the place there. And so in that context, you ain't got to wait a year to begin reaching children. You just go in and get your plan together. Within a week, you're ministering and loving, teaching children. And in the process of teaching them, basic skills in life and education, teaching the language there, okay, you're discipling them as well. And so that's what church planting looks like in India or Indonesia. It's a completely different context than what we have here in the USA. So that's a part of it as well. And so that's kind of helped them. I help them in discerning that a compelling vision, a compelling mission statement. That mission is your purpose. And when things get hard, and they will, the purpose is what keeps us going.
Yeah.
Collins, what keeps us going.
Sure does. Well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time, so we have to kind of
Yeah.
sum it up for today. Would you mind telling us again how we can purchase your book, how we can
Yeah.
find out more information, and do a discovery call with you to see what we could, learn and work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the missionalleadershipcoaching.com, there's a place there where you can get into the system to schedule a call with me. The missionalleadershipcoaching.com is where you go to even just, book my services if you want to do that. Reachablebook.com is where you can purchase the audiobook now. And you can purchase the paperback or now. The hardback is not yet released. That's a special edition. It will be autographed by me. That'll add, a couple of cents to it, maybe deduct a few cents from the value of it. I don't know, but but anyway, yeah. So reachablebook.com for the purchasing of the book and missional leadership
All right.
coaching.com to reach me, schedule a discovery call and all those things.
All right. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here. Looking
Thank
forward to
you
the
very
next time we
much.
connect. Thank you
Thank you,
again.
Jill.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.